Hello and welcome to this short refresher video on how to solve linear inequalities. We're used to solving problems that have equal signs in them. We call those equations. But if they have a less than, a greater than, a less than or equal to, or a greater than or equal to sign, those are called inequalities, and we need to be able to solve those. The cool thing is that the steps are exactly the same except for one. So if you have an equal sign, or if you have one of these alligator mouths, the steps for solving are the exact same except the very last step. Let's look at those procedures. Step number one, you got to ask yourself if you got parentheses. If you do, you need to distribute into the parentheses. Step number two, you got to ask yourself if you got fractions. If you do, you got to multiply everything by the common denominator. If you got lots of x's, like x's on the left and on the right, you need to get all the x's to the same side, usually the left side, and then combine them. Step number four is to ask yourself if you got addition or subtraction, and if you do, you need to undo those using the opposite operation. And step number five, you got to ask yourself if you've got multiplication. If you have multiplication, you're going to undo it using division. And the only thing that's different is that if you do divide by a negative, you've got to flip your sign. So if it was this way, it's going to be going that way. Or if it would look like this, it's going to look like this. That's only if you divide by a negative. So let's give it a try here. So here I have 4x plus 5 is less than or equal to 25. Let's go down my steps. Do I got parentheses? Nope. Got fractions? Nope. Got lots of x's? Nope. Do I got addition or subtraction? Ooh, I do. Okay, so I'm going to undo that. I've got a plus 5. I'm going to undo it using minus 5 to both sides. I'm left with 4x is less than or equal to 20. In my last step, do I got multiplication? I do. I've got a times by 4. So I'm going to undo it by dividing by 4. When I divide by 4 to both sides, I get x is less than or equal to 5. Notice I don't need to flip my sign. There's no flippage here. You only flip if you divide by a negative, and I did not. So here's another one in blue. Let's take a look at it. I've got 6 minus 2, open parenthesis, x plus 1, close parenthesis, is greater than or equal to 10. Let's go down my procedures. Step number one, do we got parenthesis? Ooh, I do. So I need to distribute into the parenthesis. Remember, it's a negative 2 that I'm distributing. This entire negative 2 has to be distributed. So I get 6 minus 2x minus 2 is greater than or equal to 10. Okay, cool. Can I simplify? 6 minus 2 is 4. So I've got negative 2x plus 4 is greater than or equal to 10. Let's go to the next step. Got fractions? Nope. Got lots of x's? Nope. Do I got addition or subtraction? Ooh, I do. I've got a plus 4 here. So I'm going to minus 4 to both sides. Minus 4, minus 4. I get negative 2x is greater than or equal to 6. In my last step, I've got multiplication. Yep. I've got a times by negative 2. I need to undo it using division. So I'm going to undo by dividing it by negative 2. Now notice, we're dividing by a negative number in the last step. If that ever happens, you've got flippage in your problem. So I'm going to flip this from being a greater than or equal to a less than or equal to minus 3. And that's my answer. Okay, so let's give you 3 problems to solve. Go ahead and pause the video now. We've got an orange problem, a green problem, and a red problem. Practice those on your own, and then unpause the video to see how you did. Okay, let's get going here. I'm going to use these 5 procedures to solve each of these problems. I just need to remember that in step number 5, if I divide by a negative, I've got to flip the sign. So let's go. There's no parenthesis, no fractions. We don't got lots of x's. We do have addition, so that's where I'm going to start. I'm going to minus 15 to both sides. In doing that, I'm left with negative 5x is greater than 15. I want to get x by itself, so I need to divide by negative 5. When you divide by a negative, what do you got to do? Oh yeah, flippage. So I'm going to change this from a greater than to a less than and do 15 divided by 5, which is negative 3. That's my answer. Let's try number 2. I got parenthesis in number 2, so I need to distribute. So I'm going to distribute this 3 into the parenthesis. I get 3x plus 12 is less than or equal to, I also need to distribute into this parenthesis, 2x plus 2. Okay, so I got parenthesis, got fractions, no. Got lots of x's? Ooh, I do. I've got x's on the left and on the right. So I'm going to move them all to the left. So I'm going to minus 2x to get all my x's on the left. 3x minus 2x, that's just x plus 12 is less than or equal to 2. Okay, I got to get x by itself, so I'm going to go ahead and minus 12 to both sides. Minus 12. And I get x is less than or equal to negative 10. That's my answer. There's nothing that we divided by in the last step, so there's no flippage or anything. My answer is just x is less than or equal to negative 10. Remember, you only flip the sign if you divide by a negative. Let's try this next one. Ooh, we've got fractions. So there's no parenthesis, but we do got fractions. So I need to multiply everything by the common denominator. So let's see. The common denominator, we've got 5, 5, and 5, so it's 5. I'm going to multiply all of these by 5. 5, 5, and 5. So notice the 5's cancel out. Here I get 5 times 3, which is 15. And 15 divided by 5, that's just 3. Here I get 5 times 2, that's 10. Divided by 5, that's 2x. And here I get 5 times 7, that's 35. Divided by 5 is 7. Okay, so got fractions. Do we got lots of x's? Nope. Do we got addition? Yeah, I've got this plus 3 out here. So I'm going to go ahead and minus 3 to both sides. I'm left with negative 2x is less than 4. In my last step, I'm going to go ahead and divide. I got to get x by itself, so I'm dividing by negative 2. Uh-oh. I'm dividing by a negative. If you're dividing by a negative, you've got to flip that sign. So it was less than. I'm going to flip it to be greater than. And 4 divided by negative 2 is negative 2. That's my answer on that one. And that's how you solve linear inequalities. Thanks for watching, and keep working hard.